Good evening. If people don't know who we are the Radio Twins. I'm JJ.
I'm CJ.
And if you ever want to check this this show is called the Radio Twins Experience.
Mm-hmm.
Here we interview people and talk about topics in length, far from what we do on the radio show.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why we've started this is derived from the name, the Radio Twins Experience.
And a lot of our listeners have literally wanted to hear more and see more of us. So we were like, why not the podcast?
And what better way to have a show called the Radio Twins Experience, meaning we experience new people just like you will. Mm-hmm. And tonight we've got the beautiful
thank you,
Colie Aziza. Good evening. How are you today?
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really great. How are you?
Great.
Can't complain. We I guess you could say we've all survived. Well, we've survived the pandemic to this point. So, and that's a good thing. Which leads me to this first question: how did you get through it? How did you get through it? Then people will find out why I asked that specific question.
Okay, besides losing folks, I actually one person in particular that I was very close to that I will say his name in a minute. But besides that, it didn't bother me at all as far as like having to stay in and only be around my family. And I think because I don't live alone, I live with my sister and her children. So I had my family with me.
Okay.
And so that was like, my sister's one of my best friends. So we were always together. It actually just made us closer.
Okay.
And so that was not difficult. I think if I lived alone, it might have been more difficult for me. And I wondered how those single folks that live alone, how they got through it. It might be difficult. And sometimes you'd see folks out and you'd say, what are they doing? They shouldn't be out. But then I had to, kind of extend some grace because you just needed to get out of the house and not, be alone if you did live alone. So I then, tried to empathize with those folks. So for me, being in and not having to, not being able to go out didn't really bother me. The virtual thing, because I was still teaching at the time, that actually did, that's my niece. I'm sorry, in the background.
That's all right.
But the virtual, that bothered me visually. Sometimes I would get headaches from being online with the students because I was still teaching at the time. But my experience with teaching at the time, I actually didn't have a classroom, but I would go in and consult with teachers and provide extra support to my students that were mainstreamed into general ed. That actually, I saw my students thrive, actually. I know that wasn't the experience for all young people at the time, but I was amazed at how well, and I worked with early learners. They were only 5 years old. And I thought that they were doing really, really, really well, considering, this was a new experience for them and their families. And I thought it was really interesting because we were really then going into their homes. Right. We would see the family dynamic and everything, but I thought the children did extremely well. That was my experience that I saw children do. I found them to be resilient. And so that was very inspiring for me. So there were some things about it that I actually found as a blessing, even though I know at the same time there were people that were really sick. And I lost a really close friend. His name is Howard Franklin, who really was a mentor to me, a friend, but also a mentor. He was the first person that in this area that like put me on stage. He was a drummer and a musician, but his main instrument was the drums, known as the drummer that folks call him in the jazz world, Kingfish. And he was the first person that said, come on, let me put you on the stage with me, and believed in my talent, I think, before I really believed in myself, because I was afraid sometimes on stage, like because I'm with these guys that really know how to play and they know what they're doing, and do I really know what I'm doing? But he believed in me, and so that was a shock and a great loss. This is a young man, so that was awful.
Right. How was it a difficult thing for you to transition to being a part of a band and doing, knowing or getting to know this new thing by performing with a band?
When I began to, so was it difficult performing with bands?
Like was it difficult trying to feel everybody out?
That's not the difficult part for me, especially with jazz. The musicians can be very about their craft. Not that other musicians aren't, but jazz musicians to me are very much, about their craft.
Right.
And very serious about the music. And I just always wanted to make sure that I got up on stage and did the song right, performed the song correctly and gave it its justice. And that if they switched up, because that happens with jazz sometimes, if they changed the key, if they did something, if they were, playing one way and then really started swinging, that I was able to flow with them, because jazz changes. I mean, that's what jazz is. It doesn't stay the same. I mean, not that I think all of our music does that, because I think that as people from of African descent, we flow, right? We flow. So all of our music does that. But specifically on stage, jazz musicians may just switch up on stage. And so it was important for me to be ready and be right. And so that was where the nervousness came from, that I wanted to make sure that I was representing myself and the music properly.
Okay, cool.
So what got you into singing? Was it just something you knew you had, or it just kind of, it just came out of nowhere? Like, how did you know singing was it for you?
Okay, so I've been doing it since I was a little girl. My dad was a singer. He sang with a doo-wop group, and they were called the Placards. Actually, you can look them up. There's some pictures of them online. And so that's one of the things I love about, the internet, because now, like, I knew that he did that as a child, but now I can actually look it up and see it, it on the internet. So he performed, and he had a wonderful voice, and so he would always encourage my sister and I to sing and harmonize, and we did that. And then he started noticing, you have a voice, you can sing. And so I just kept doing it. And then I went to, my family noticed that I could, had a little pitch, had a little, nice tone, I guess, as a child. And then when high school, I was in the chorus in junior high school, and we had a really good arts program in my junior high in the Bronx. That's where I grew up. And then I went to the arts high school in New York, auditioned, because the chorus teacher, Mrs. Rano, encouraged me to audition, because we had to go into Manhattan. So we'd have to leave the Bronx. Everyone would have to leave their boroughs and go into Manhattan and get on the train and the bus to go to this high school. So my mom wasn't really feeling that, because of safety. She was like, I don't know if I want you to do that. But my chorus teacher, Mrs. Rana, was like, please, 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 talk to your mom. I'll talk to her, but you really should audition. And so we were able to get my mom to agree, and I auditioned. And even after I got in, she was still like, I don't know if I want you to go all the way into Manhattan. But then there were a group of young people from my neighborhood.
Oh, that's good.
That were going in. So we traveled together. And so once I started studying in high school, and then I was around all these other creatives in high school, then it was like, okay, yeah, I really want to do this. I really want
wow. To do this. We had our parents, like our father kind of was like, even though your mom was hesitant, she agreed eventually,
Yes.
And I think that starts with a young person, is the parents who's older, that will see potential and, kind of push you into that direction. Right. Definitely. How did you get into teaching?
So the only other thing that I thought that I would want to do besides performing is to help people. That's one of the things I would say since I was a little girl, besides singing, what do you want to do? Help people. So when I got to college, I went to a city college, a Hunter College in Manhattan, and then I transferred to Syracuse. And so once I got up there and I realized that I probably wouldn't graduate with a theater degree, with a musical theater degree, because that's why I went there, because they had musical theater. But when I realized that I probably would change my major, I was like, well, the only other thing I really want to do is be in a helping field. So I said, it'll probably be social work or teaching. And so I was just like, I think I'll do teaching. And if I do teaching, I want it to be more specific. So I majored in special education once I changed my major.
That's cool. That says that you have patience. And you're open. Yeah, and you're
okay.
No, I mean, because when you said helping people, that's one of the reasons, or one of the things that kind of drove me into a few of the different things that I like. I said to myself, if I wanted to be in a profession, it would probably be helping people. And I ended up in the medical field. Okay. So I'm not a doctor, like, a physical physician, but I like helping people. I like when someone literally, me fixing something and helping people. So I see that part in you when you do sing, and then I could almost see both situations kind of working together, singing, and then of course when you're helping people, that means you're a little bit comfortable with big crowds or small crowds.
And creative, because it's almost like your singing side takes over, and it's like, okay, I can get to this person or young person by trying to do this, like teaching them the alphabets with a song
Yes. Yeah. You're right. It all fits. And even with performing, I've gotten to the point where for me, it is about, this sounds a little dramatic, but when folks come to see me, I want it to be a transformative experience for them. So I want it to be, when you leave there, like, oh, that touched me, or I learned that, or so it all fits. And even as a solo artist, that's what I want to do. But even the groups that I choose to perform with, Liberated Muse is an arts collective of women founded by Khadijah Ali Coleman, who's also a good friend of mine. And we do that kind of work, poetry and music and theater. And so it's always about learning something. We want folks to learn something when they leave us. Deepwater Jazz Band is a group out of Baltimore. And with them, it's just about like the jazz, like they write most of the tunes that we perform with them, they've written, and we put lyrics. One of the founders, his wife is a lyricist, so she adds lyrics to the songs, and also we'll take songs that are like instrumentals, traditionally instrumentals, and she'll add lyrics to them. So with them, it's about like sort of like they're a musicians band, where musicians can come and say, what do they do? Oh my gosh, they put those two songs together. So that's, where you kind of learn in that too, like, whoa, it really opens up your mind. That's why they call it deep water, because they said we're going into the deep, with the types of things they do.
I like that. That's different. When you do your music, do you go in with a mindset, like let's say a particular song? Do you go, what comes to you first, the lyrics or the music? You have to feel the music first, or
so if I'm writing something, or if I choose a song to sing, a cover song to sing?
If you're writing something.
If I'm writing, usually the melody first. I'm a melody person, and then I'll write the lyrics. I'm a melody, like I will remember a melody, like I'll know the whole song. I could hum it to you, but I don't get lyrics first. And then I'll remember the lyrics after. So when if I have to learn a cover tune, like I'll learn the music first.
Right.
And get it in my head and my body. And then I'll remember the lyrics.
As far as you being a poet, what drives you to be creative in that department?
So it used to be if I was mad about something. No, I'm serious. Like if I was like really like upset or angry about something, and it used to be a lot of like political stuff. things in the community that I saw that just upset me, or in the world that upset me. And then I was like, I want to just be able to, I don't want it to be just when that happens in me. I want to be able to write when I, just to be influenced by the environment that I'm in, you know, or if someone says, can you do, like recently, I don't know if you've seen me like going crazy on social media with, the chapter where I play, I'm a Delta Sigma Theta. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And
I think you just celebrated 50 years, right?
50 years of the chapter that I pledged at. Yes. Kappa Lambda chapter at Syracuse. And so my sorors asked if I could do a poem for the event. And so I just said, give me a minute, give me a day. And then I just, was able to write something for the event. So I'm able to do that now. I wasn't always, I think, able to do that. I think that just takes practice. That just takes you doing it enough. And there is something to be said for just doing something, just doing it over and over and over again. I watched an interview where someone asked Serena, I believe, if, like, why is she so good? Like, what, why are you, they were almost like kind of saying, are you just naturally good at this? Like playing tennis? Are you just, and she was like, why wouldn't I be good? The amount of time that I've put in to this, why wouldn't I be as good as I am? I'm not saying that I'm just saying that you do get better if you keep doing something over and over and over. So there's something to be said for that, because I don't know, maybe about like 10 years ago, certainly if someone had said, can you just write a poem for this based on this? I don't know if I would have been able to do it as quickly and as efficiently as I can do it now, and be proud of it,
I heard the same thing actually today. I was looking at some show where they said it's like a known fact, if you continually do something over like 10,000 times or something, it's like repetitive and you become a pro at it. And I think about the same thing when people would tell us, oh, if you have a talent or something and you don't use it, it's sort of like that blessing that God gave you. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so I believe every word of that. I totally believe every word of that.
And speaking of, you mentioned you started mainly as far as poetry when you got angry. How do you feel about the usage of, let's say, curse words?
I might throw something in there, but nothing too bad. But I don't see anything wrong with it if you feel it.
Right.
You just kind of read the room. I think you need, need to know.
Yes,
yeah,
that's true. That part.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. What made you go into now your children's book?
Okay, so now that's something that I really didn't think that I would do.
Really?
I mean, because I always sang, and then the singing kind of brought me into acting. And then I always liked to write, again, if something bothered me, I would write it down. So the poetry makes sense. The singing makes sense. The acting makes sense. But not that the being an author doesn't make sense. It's just not anything that I thought I would do. So what happened with that, as I was teaching, I had a kindergarten class one year, and I was talking to them about dreams, and Martin Luther King specifically. It was around MLK's birthday, and I think I was talking to them about him having the dream. And they, of course, at that age, developmentally, when they think of a dream, they think of, I'm going to sleep and having a dream. And he was speaking about that metaphorically, but they didn't really understand a dream, the concept of a dream as a goal or aspiration. They just didn't get it. So I was like, well, how can I help them understand that, you can dream something for something you want to do now, or later. We always ask children, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or, or just, where would you like to go? It doesn't have to be something that far away. It can be, I want to go to Disney. I want to go to Disney World. That's a dream of mine, And so they just didn't understand. They didn't understand that. So I was like, okay, what can I do? Can I write a song? Can I write a poem? I thought of the things that I normally do, right? What can I do? And then I just started writing. And the first line in the story is, "This is a story about a boy named Colie who has bright eyes and a smile like the sun." I mean, that just came to me, and I just started writing, and it didn't take me long. And that's why with that particular story, for me, that was just God, because it just came out of me, you know. And then I tweaked it, and you know, it took me a while to get it out. I had to find an illustrator and everything, but yeah, that was because I was trying to find a way to help my children understand, my students understand what a dream was as a goal, you know. Yeah.
Wow. How long was the process?
So actually writing it didn't take me long. I mean, like I said, I kind of fine-tuned it, but I would say a couple of days that I was done with it. And then that was, when did I write that story? I wrote it it was in the 90s. To be quite honest with you. And then it took me a really long time to find an illustrator. Like I would find somebody, then they would move, and so then I would read it to my friends. And I remember a couple of folks who were friends of mine would always say, "Well, what about that children's book? Don't forget about it. Make sure you do it." And I sent it to a couple of publishers. And then I said, well, I'll self-publish, because people are doing that. I started to see more and more people self-publishing. And then actually I was doing a play at the time. I mentioned to those folks, we were talking like when we were in rehearsal about, you know, other things that we like to do. And I said, well, I've written a children's book, but I need to find an illustrator. And so one of those people gave me the illustrator's name. They said, oh, I know a great illustrator. And then I think I had asked someone who's a friend of mine on Facebook, like, do you know? I don't know why I asked her. And she said, she gave me the same name. She gave me the same guy's name. And then there is, I don't know if you know the singer. He's a friend of mine, Brian Christopher. He's in the area. He does like R&B. Yeah. And so I asked Brian, and he gave me the same name. And so I said, okay, this is supposed to happen. And so I reached out. And then it worked out.
That's good. That's, again, that was God.
Yes.
So
yes.
As far as your first book, have you written anything else, or do you have any plans to do some other books?
Yes. So I'm working on a book called Corey's Crown. So Corey's Dreams, I actually have it right here if folks want to see it, just so you. This is Corey's Dreams.
I'm waiting for mine to come in.
Oh, okay. And then I also have it in Spanish. And that's the story.
Now see, that's unique. I like that.
Yes.
Well, I did that because I was being my American self, and I'm being sarcastic, and went to Cuba. And thought, oh, I'll just give this Corey's Dreams out to to some of the children, or if I meet a child, and I'll give it to a child in Cuba. And I was like, they can't read this book. They need it in Spanish. And then, of course, I had students in my classroom who were Spanish. So I said, I need to get this translated. So I was able to. I had a colleague who, a fellow teacher, who said that she could do it for me. And then that's how we got it. But you asked about the second. So I have a sequel to Corey's Dreams called Corey's Crown. And that is finished. Not quite. I wrote it, and now I'm going to have it edited. So I'm getting ready to go into the editing process. I have the same illustrator as well on board from Corey's Dreams. He'll do Corey's Crown.
Nice. Okay. Well. That's great.
So so we're working on that now.
Now, as far as your music, anything coming up about that?
So I'm performing live all the time. I was like, I know they're going to ask me that. I haven't recorded in so long. And honestly, the recording, I don't enjoy recording, being in the studio as much as I enjoy singing live. I think it's because I feel isolated, kind of like in a box. And, what happens in the studio, you can sing to a track, right? And that's what I wind up doing. But I like, the process has been for me that, you have the musicians come in. If you're going to use the live musicians, several musicians, and they'll do a track with you. So you lay their songs down. The vocal track is usually just there for the musicians to hear. So sometimes that track that I do is usually It's usually pretty good because they're there, and I'm used to having like feeding off of that, right? Instead of just being in the little box there singing, listening to them, or listening to just a track of keyboard playing. So that's not the place that I enjoy the most.
Right.
But I do want to get more music out there. It's also a money thing. I'll be honest. And because I spent a lot on that first CD that I did. And so, but now it's not like people are putting out full CDs. You can put out a single. It's not as much money. And so, things have changed. So I probably will get in the studio and do, release some singles. That's what I'll do soon.
Now, your style, who, as far as you say you love jazz, who did you look up to as like, this is what I'm aspired to be? Any artist?
That's a good question. Okay, so there are so many, so many artists. I would say now, it's a man. So not his sound, but his delivery, his presentation, is Gregory Porter, actually.
Oh, okay. He does have a unique sound, a unique voice. And I stumbled across him with if I'm correct, I think he did a gospel song with someone. And I was like, who is this? The voice was told. I love differences in voices. Right. I don't care if it's raspy or really high or really low, but it's a difference. It's sort of like that. I call it the Macy Gray vibe. Like her voice is so different and to the left that people had no other choice but to listen because it was so captivating.
Right.
So yeah.
Which and since you said it made me think of something, and then we can go back to it, is the song that you use on your website. To me, that's why I continually go back, because of the song.
Right.
I love what you did for that, because not only that you have the presentation of how it looks, of what you hear when you go there, and just to hear that, it's like, wow, let me go through the rest of this website. So
yeah, and he does that because he's online more than I am. Right. And have you gone to her website lately? I was like, Jay, I'm doing something right now. Like he always, just to listen to the song, he likes to break down the melodic sounds of that song. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, and by the way, give it out just in case people want to know.
Yeah.
The whole CD or that particular song?
Website, the CD.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's ColieAziza.com. And the CD is Light Up the Darkness. Now you're going to see Light Up the Darkness is actually Colie Williams, because it's before I always say I'm the woman of many names, but it's before I dropped the Williams. And Aziza was an African name that was gifted to me. And so I decided to add that to, to actually use the name and not just have it there, to tell people, oh, that's my African name. No. So I wanted to, put it together and use it. So that just so people don't get confused. And when you see Light Up the Darkness, it's under Colie Williams, not Colie Aziza. But the music is on my website. And so you can buy it on my website, or you can go to, any of the platforms to purchase it as well. And so, okay, you asked me. So I said, Light Up the Darkness, Colie Aziza. I think I answered that right.
And like I said, you're good at what you do. Your voice is more like, most people will say your voice is your instrument. And I believe that to be true. You have a very well-refined instrument.
Thank you.
If people have ever heard her sing,
right. I hate using words like this, like it's almost like velvet. It's
right.
It
flows.
Really flows. It's like soothing in a way. And so, I think when people hear your voice and hear some of the records that you've done, you're going to be an instant fan, period. I mean, I don't just say that to say,
so sweet.
You're welcome. But
you ever thought about blending your voice or musical, like putting maybe a song or two with your book?
I actually did. If you go to
see, there you go.
He did his homework. Yeah.
So if you look up Corey's Dreams on YouTube, I have two read alouds. So there is one that it's someone else did it. Oh gosh, it's the national. It's the Black Theater DC Black Theater Festival. So they produced that. Because that year they were still doing virtual. They couldn't actually do the festival live, so they did it virtually, and they wanted to incorporate authors. So they have me reading the story, and I also do the song that I wrote for it. But then I also have just the read aloud that I produced. Yes, I produced it with the person that was in the studio with me, and I'm reading the story. Actually, you don't see me; you just see the pictures and the song. Okay. You hear my voice, right? So there's two Corey's Dreams read alouds on YouTube.
Okay, see, that's exactly. If you had to change anything up until this point, would you?
I would. Let me see what I changed. I would say maybe at some point I would have said that, but now I won't. Because I think that I have developed a love for teaching. If you had asked me that, like I always loved, like I said, it was either going to be one or the, like, what else do I want to do? I want to help people. It will be either be teaching or social work, right? But I really wanted to perform so much that if you'd asked me that at a different time, I might say, I would have stuck with the performing. And I wouldn't have I would have just stayed and graduated with that degree and, pushed myself and kept performing and really not gone into teaching. But I have developed such a love for teaching, early childhood specifically. I worked with teenagers first, and I actually really liked that. But once I came to Maryland, I just developed such a love for early childhood, and it's just so important. And I really see myself being being in the movement for making folks understand how impactful that is for children. And I actually started a learning channel on YouTube called Mariama Learning Channel, where I just provide parents with resources for their children, just ideas on how to do help them with their fine motor skills. And I'll have different topics, once a month. So that's become really, really important to me. And I see that as part of like my path. So would I change? No, I don't think so. I think I'm on the right path. I just have to keep doing it. I just have to keep doing everything and not stop.
Okay. Right. What's your best and worst piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
Okay. Let me see. I've got a lot of advice. I'm trying to think what was my best piece of advice. I don't know if this was my best, but this was a good advice. Years ago, I was singing at a place called Mimi's American Bistro, and actually was owned by the man that owns Busboys and Poets, Andy Shalom. And so it was before Busboys and Poets. And the whole theme of the restaurant was that the folks who worked there, the hosts, the waiters, that during the night we would get up and sing. And we had a piano player, and we would get up. Everyone had a different style. And so the cast of, I can't remember I think it might have been Beauty and the Beast. Like the cast of Beauty and the Beast, I think. They were performing at the Kennedy Center. They came because everyone started to find out about Mimi's, because it was really kind of a theater place, because you had the live music, but just with the piano. And so they came to eat after one of their shows. And one of the ladies who played Mrs. Potts, I remember that. I just remember that was her character. And she came over to me and she said, always take a little bit for yourself. So she was talking about money, right? So she said, I know, as a creative, you might not be making that much. You can make a lot, but when you're struggling, when you're a struggling artist, you may not be making what you want to make. But she said, I want to encourage you to keep doing this, because I really see that you can go far with this. So I know sometimes it's an issue of money, with taking the voice lessons or the dance lesson or whatever it is you need to do as an artist to, perfect your craft. But she said, always take some of the money. You have to pay the rent. You have to, put gas in your car, but always keep a little bit for yourself to do what it is that you need to do. And, you might not be able to maybe take the workshop, this month, but if you, just save up the money and then take it when you need to. But she said, always keep some of the money for yourself to perfect your craft. And I always remember that. And I appreciated her taking, coming over to me and taking the time out. But I've had so many people have said things to me, but that, that kind of touched me. And that's what came to my mind when you asked. Now, the worst piece of advice, let me see the worst. I'm trying to think quickly. That I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Right. No, I'm not listening to you. I think sometimes, I'm sorry.
They can remain nameless.
Right. Yeah. No, I won't say that. But I would say that, another great one is that perfectionism is paralysis.
Really?
And that's what a student, no, this was a good one. No, I'm saying another good one. Yeah, okay. It was a studio, an engineer that I work with, and he saw me that, that I wanted to really get something a certain way. And he said, you know what? Perfectionism is paralysis. And that stayed with me. And that applies to everything though, not just being in the studio. But at the same time, I would say that sometimes producers that I've worked with who I love dearly may want me to move on with something. And it's not about being a perfectionist, but it's about getting it
right
the way I want to get it. And I feel like sometimes I listen to folks and I shouldn't have, because I should have made it the way I wanted to make it. It's not about it being perfect. It's just about making it the way you want to make it, so that you feel right with it. And then I'll go in, because it's the same, and I love him dearly, but it's the same person that I'm on my CD. I have a song called Black Love. And he told me not to put it on there. Because, he said, you'll exclude, some of your audience. And I didn't listen to him. I said, no, I really want to put this on there. And if it excludes folks, but this is a part of who I am, and I want to put it on. So that was not good. To me, that wasn't good advice. But I understood it, but I just didn't. And I didn't listen. It didn't stop people from listening. So
when you said what was it? Paralysis? What was that metaphor or that phrase you said?
Perfection.
Is paralysis.
I get it now. Like I just had an epiphany. It just hit me. It was just a perfect way of saying, because I remember when we used to go to the studio, I would literally critique myself to no end.
Yes.
And if you do that, you never finish what you came to do.
Right.
So I get it now. Like it just hit me, and I was okay. I get it now. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Because I kept wanting to fix things, and the producer was like, "Just let it go," and then the engineer was like, "Colie, perfection." And then I said, "Okay, you're right." But then the more, like, when I listened to it, go back and listen to the CD, sometimes there was just some things that, I would want a certain way. And I think that, I just have to trust myself. I don't think I trusted myself then. I'm much more confident in in my ear, I think I have a really good ear, and I don't think I trusted myself then. So, yeah, I wish I had trusted myself more, but the thing that I didn't listen to that I thought was really bad advice was not to put Black Love on the CD.
Okay. Well, we have a
list of questions and statements.
It's like fill in the blank. We say the first part, and you fill it in with what you think should be in that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So
you want to start first?
yeah, I could never have predicted.
Oh, I could have never predicted that I wouldn't have children.
The key to happiness is
Freedom.
Ooh,
Okay, I don't think I've never heard that answer, but that's
I like
yeah.
that.
You will never regret.
I will never regret. I will never regret making most of the choices that I've made.
But you might wish you had.
Not been so impulsive at times.
Okay.
Yeah. That sounds something. That's I relate to that one.
Right. I do too.
I truly relate to that one. The biggest risk I ever took.
Oh my gosh. I know I've taken, let me think. The biggest risk I ever took. Okay. I mean, there's a lot, but I'm sorry. This is what comes to mind. It's way back. So if there's any young people listening to this, I was like maybe 18 years old, and I was in the Bronx, and I was in my neighborhood, but a little further. My neighborhood was pretty big, so I would have had to have walked a distance to get to my house. And these guys saw me, and they were on motorcycles, and they were like, "Do you want to ride home?"
Oh, wow.
And I was like, being a cute 18-year-old, thinking I was cute. And I was like, "Sure, okay." And they gave me a ride home. And then they were like, "Well, we're going to come back and the whole time I was riding home, I was like, I should not have done this. Like, they can drive off with me and maybe I'm not ever going to get home. I just had such a bad feeling, And they said, "Well, we're going to come back, and maybe we can go out later on." And, I didn't have parents that really let me out like that, but it was still light when they came back. And I said, okay. I was just trying. God was like, "Get upstairs, get away from these people." And I did. And they actually came back because I could see them from my mother's window. But I didn't go back out.
Okay.
So I think, honestly, I really feel like, that was a big risk because I could have walked home. I did not need to get on their motorcycle. And I think that they were not, they could have, the energy I got from them was that they were going to do something to me that was not good.
Okay.
As long as you read that.
Right.
Yeah. Never be impressed by.
Never be impressed by what people have. By what other people have.
Right.
I hope people will remember
me most for.
Yes.
I hope people remember me most for my empathy.
That's good. A lot of people would say something different, but
yeah,
I like that. I really like that one. Maybe because we're sort of the same when it comes to helping other individuals as well. Right. Just hate the abuse part that other people tend to do
and try to take advantage.
Right.
The fact
that.
Right. I hate that.
But that's good. Now, if people wanted to get in contact with you, order the book, or purchase the book or your music, how would they do that, and where would they find you?
Okay, so you can go to my website, ColieAziza.com, ColieAziza.com. You can contact me there. You can buy the music there. You can buy the book there. I made it so that folks can do that. But you can also get the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And you can get the music on Spotify, Amazon. It's on all, the platforms. And that's Light Up the Darkness. I also have a single called Natural. You can get it there as well. but you can get it on my website as well.
I've also ordered the book,
×2.
right. So we're just waiting.
Yeah.
Cool.
I thought we'd be here by today.
Right, because we were going to actually show.
Right. But yeah, because I know when we had you in studio, because we've interviewed you before a few years ago, and that was a great experience. And that's another reason why we wanted to, interview you again, because even though we've had that pandemic, there's so many good things that you do that more people need to know about.
Right.
So, again, thank you for taking the time out to be interviewed by us.
Yes.
We really, when I say we really appreciate it, thank you.
I appreciate you both. Thank you so much for having me again.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Colie Aziza. Oh, by the way, what does it Aziza mean?
So Aziza is precious, and Mariama. So I was given 2 names: Aziza, precious; Mariama, child of God. So precious, child of God, and so I use Mariama with my books. That's why it's Aziza M, if you see on there, and then Mariama Learning Channel. But yeah, and I have to say that came at a time in my life when I really needed to hear that. So God is very much, I don't consider myself religious, but definitely a spiritual person, very much. I'm very aware of God's movement in my life. And so many things happen because, because of God, and because I'm very blessed and connected. Thank God. But so many things, because I needed to hear that who would have known that I would have gotten that name? Aziza Mariam, precious child of God. And I even asked the person who gave me the name in the ceremony, did you realize that I was like really going through something at that time? And he was like, oh, I didn't know. And so, yeah.
Good. And it fits you. Just by the person you are. We've met you more than once. So, but yeah, definitely. Again, we want to say thank you. We appreciate it.
Go cop the book. Go
and
get
the music.
I'm telling you, you
won't visit the website
and you won't be disappointed.
Definitely.
Yeah, and if you have young children and you need some ideas about, just new and fresh ideas on how to work with them and build up their skills, you can go to Mariama Learning Channel on YouTube.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank
Ladies and gentlemen.
Much.
Colie Aziza.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are the Radio Twins. I'm JJ.
I'm CJ.
And we out of here.
Peace.